Storytime about the time that I was kidnapped. I would just like to add in an extreme trigger warning. So a little background information. I was 16 at the time, and my two friends invited me to a birthday party. It was this girl and her boyfriend. They said that it was in the south side and not a lot of people were going to be there. So we go to the guy's house who's throwing the party, and nobody's there except for him. And at first he was being really nice. I asked where everybody was and they were like, oh, they're gonna show up later. While my friends are sitting on the couch, they start making out for like an hour straight. And this guy, who we're gonna call Jeremy, he keeps going in and out of the front door. Well, my friends asked the guy if they could go to the bathroom, and he goes, yeah, it's just around back. And at this point, they are gone for an hour. So now I'm super freaked out and I'm thinking of all the ways that I could possibly get out of this house. So I ask if I can use the bathroom. So he leads me to the backyard, which is through this alleyway, and it's pretty much fenced in by like brick buildings. So when we're back there, I'm like, where's the bathroom? And he points down to a bucket, like for part two. Part two about the time that I was kidnapped. So like I said, he leads me to the backyard. When I ask where the bathroom is, he points at a bucket sitting in the middle of the yard. So I'm about to do my business and he's literally staring at me. And I'm like, can you not watch me? And he turns around, but he's still literally standing there. So at this point, I had a plan that whenever we got out of that alley, I was just going to start running. Well, that didn't go according to plan. Because as soon as we got out of the alleyway, he grabs me by my hair and drags me into the house. So right now, I'm super scared. I'm thinking, where the hell are my friends at? Well, then he says, we're going to play a game. So at this point, I'm just going along with everything because I want to make it out of this alive. So he puts a screwdriver in this lock in the front door. And then he makes me turn around and count to 15 and then turn back around. When I turned back around, he was standing there naked with a pair of leather gloves on. And at this point, I'm thinking that my friend set me up. Anyways, he punches me in the face, knocking me out cold. I woke up later to him choking me while I'm laying on the floor, like for part 3. Part 3 about the time that I was kidnapped. So like I said, he had punched me in the face, knocking me out cold. And when I woke up, he was choking me while I was laying on the floor. And he says, you're going to do whatever I say or I'm going to kill you. And just to prove it to you, he starts choking me in this weird way where I literally am coming in and out of consciousness. Apparently, if you choke somebody a certain way, they can literally pass out. So I said, I'll do whatever he said. And that's whenever he forced me to take off all my clothes. For the next 5 days, I had been sexually assaulted repeatedly and had no food or water. One minute he would be completely fine and then the next he would act like a psycho. He would be like, nobody loves me, I'm the spawn of Satan, I'm Satan's child. Just a lot of off-the-wall shit. So I started using reverse psychology on him. He said my own mother doesn't love me, and I was like, well, I love you. Fast forward, the 5th day was the worst day. He was constantly beating me. He had thrown me on the floor. I was begging for food. I still had no clothes on. You will never guess what he did next, like for part 4. Part 4 about the time that I had been kidnapped. So like I said, 5th day the worst, I'm begging for food, he's beating me constantly. So he made me sit on the couch next to him and he opens a can of cat food. I was so hungry at this point, it did not matter what it was. Well, he went into one of his episodes and he threw a space heater at my head. I woke up and I was laying on my back on the ground and I could barely open my eyes. They were like swollen shut. I could see a little bit and when I looked down, I saw that both of my hands had been broken completely. Like every single bone. Well, my parents, who had been on drugs at the time, never bothered to look for me for those few days. Well, that morning, apparently, my mom had this weird gut feeling that they needed to find me. So she told my dad, we need to find Christina. So they had been out looking for me and they saw this guy that was one of my friends. And he pretty much says, you better tell me where Christina is or I'm calling the cops on all of you. So they had told my dad that the house right next door was where I was at. So he went and knocked on the neighbor's door. And they said, well, we've been hearing screaming next door all week, like for part 5.